continuous improvement is better than delayed perfection. Mark Twain. The desire for the entrepreneur I'm speaking with today to improve hiring and his staff in the ophthalmology field has led him to a new business altogether. Jam-packed with something we can all use in our businesses, this is a must-listen to episode. You have the power to be the boss of your own life. I'm your host, Monica Allen. I'm a wife, mom, entrepreneur, best-selling author, lifelong learner, and your biz bestie. I have a love and passion for all things small business. Growing my own company from $700 to over 7 figures annually, my goal is to bring you inspiration, business-focused topics and tips, encouragement, and a community that helps you launch, grow, and scale your business, whether you are a dreamer, a side hustler, or a seasoned entrepreneur. You are listening to the Become Your Own Boss podcast. As hip-hop celebrates 50 years this year, we here at Zeus's Closet were extremely excited to see some of our custom gear worn recently on the Grammys by rappers from the group Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, pioneers of rap music. Being like a tattoo shop for your clothes, our episode sponsor for this week, Zeus's Closet, has had the pleasure of having custom items worn by the likes of Akon, Rick Ross, the cast of Atlanta, She-Hulk, Black Panther, Creed, and many other notable celebrities. When only the best decorated apparel will do, check out Zeus's Closet at Zeus'sCloset.com, providing custom embroidered and printed gear for all passions of life. Okay, this is a power-packed episode. My guest today began his entrepreneurial journey, much like myself, starting a business with his spouse. Ankit Patel somewhat stumbled across a new business idea while solving an enormous problem that he was having in his first business, Classic Vision Care here in Atlanta. It is actually a problem that many of us business owners are facing right now. Take a listen to Ankit's journey into his new venture, My BCAT team. Hi, Ankit. Thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Monica.
I know that you and your wife started Classic Vision Care some years ago here in Atlanta, but now you have started another business. Tell me, what was the reason you started Business Care Team?
Yeah, so My BCAT team was founded because I solved one of our own problems. So we had challenges around staffing a few years back, and I had heard other people taking portions of their tasks in office items and doing it in the Philippines. And so we started doing that. And then as I started talking to some of the peers in the industry, they're like, oh, can I get help with that? I was like, sure. It literally just started by people asking about it. And then at some point it clicked to say, maybe I should try to do this and sell it at a larger scale. And so that's where we are today, is selling that as a service for optometrists and ophthalmology offices.
Okay, nice. You saw an opportunity. You jumped on it.
Yeah. And this is interesting because it's probably one of the first businesses that I've started where the demand is outpacing what I can keep up with. So it's definitely something that I think we've hit on a nerve and something that's valuable for the market.
Well, that's definitely a great problem to have, for sure. That's awesome. As you started this new business, though, what challenges have you seen so far?
It's a remote work team. I'm learning how to manage a remote work team. That's one challenge. The other thing is scale. It's how do you scale a remote team? So those have been the two biggest challenges that I've had. And then, solving scale problems, making sure we have the right infrastructure. What do we use for communication? Is it HIPAA compliant? How do we make sure that we can be flexible enough to where we can accommodate almost any other practice, but tight enough to where we can have standards of operating procedures?
Right. How are you managing? Well, I guess my question to you is, how are you packaging this for other firms? I know you solved your problem first, but how are you now packaging this for other ophthalmology firms?
Yes. For optometrists and ophthalmology, we do something similar. So what we say is we can handle a lot of the admin tasks that you have that can free up your team in office to do what they do best, is dealing with patient care. We'll talk about how do you take the burden off of them, do with admin tasks. So typically inbound, outbound calling is a big one. Recalls, getting patients on the books, confirming appointments, insurance verification, insurance filing. Sometimes there's patient collections, like for copays and things like that. So all these little things that can be done by someone who's not in office is things that we can take over. The biggest pain point is usually the phones for folks, because they're just constantly like, okay, there's a patient in front of them, the phone's ringing and the patient is saying, oh, are you going to get that? And that's something that you don't want a patient to say, right?
Right.
So that's something that's kind of nice to have, where it's like the phone doesn't ring in the office unless it's an emergency. That really changes the dynamics. We've seen that it actually helps with sales in the office as well because of that.
Oh, that's great. That's always a plus. I've tried outsourcing my phone services in the past. How have you overcome the challenge of the people being knowledgeable about what your clients need at that time? How are you training them?
The one thing that another key element of success was the fact that I know the business inside and out, and we have practices, right? We know what the nuances are in the business. What we do is, from a hiring process, it's a really robust hiring process. We do everything from when you apply we write the job posting for the psychology of the person we want. We know based off the job function that we want a certain type of personality. If it's on the phone, we want someone who's a little bit more personable, who's also fairly detail oriented, but not so detail oriented that they're perfectionists, right? We want folks that will adhere to our processes and understand how to do things, but understand how to be flexible in there as well. Write a job description to reflect that. So we'll put in a lot of details in the job description, because if there's a lot of details, usually someone who's not detail oriented gets kind of shied away from that. People who are detail oriented want that. That's step one. The second step is they will do a psychometric testing. We use a thing called Culture Index, which tells us it's usually about 90% accurate on their personality and how they'll behave in a work role. The third thing is there's a custom form that we have them fill out that tells us things like technical details, like what's the internet speed, what's, how many monitors they have, what are the computer specs. In addition to that, we also ask them to do some written questions and answers, like why do you want this job, things like that. So we get to see the written skills. And then we have a couple of tests that we make them take: typing test, IQ test, language test. So we can see a quick version, so we can make sure that they're at least in the ballpark what we need in terms of those specs. Then we go into the in-person phone interviews, where we'll vet them again and look at the work history and ask them questions. And then there's another interview process that's usually going more into the work experience. So there's two interview processes. And then we'll go into the training part, where we go into U.S. cultural training, specific optometric training, and we actually have several months of training and leveling up. We have an internal academy that we're creating for that as well. And that's just on the employee side. On the client side, we actually we listen to what they say, and we actually create two things. We create a process map. So it's like a big diagram where you have like, this is where you start, and then if this, then this. And so it's a giant decision tree. And then the client approves that. And based off of that, we go into and create SOPs, or standard operating procedures. Those are very detailed out, and they're very succinct, and the client approves that. So before we even start people answering on the phones, we vetted them for phone performance and being able to speak English and understand English. And we vetted the client side to make sure that the process is correct. And so when we train, we're training onto that specific thing. So we're very detailed in terms of how we define the process.
That being said, it sounds to me like not only are you saving the client a lot of time, you're also saving them money in their hiring process, because you're doing all that vetting up front for them.
Yeah. And so if reality, but what I noticed was when I was hiring staff internally to do the same thing, they were making a lot of more mistakes than my team over there is making. You would have to do it through something similar to get a similar skill set here locally. And the challenge is right now, I think everyone's feeling the pinch, right? There seems to be a tough time hiring, getting enough good quality talent. The fact that we go to a place that has a lot of talented people, a lot of these folks have college degrees that we're getting on board, and they've had experience in working for places like Optum, United Healthcare, other insurance companies.
Right.
So they have some healthcare knowledge as well. We're able to get a really high talent pool that's really consistent and works really hard. And we're able to teach them and train them. And we try to de-risk it as much as possible for our clients.
Right. And all of your VAs are coming from the Philippines?
At the moment, yes. We're looking at other places as well. But right now, we actually also rent space in a couple of locations there in the Philippines. So we actually have a brick and mortar presence there as well.
Oh, wow. Okay. I know you've been an entrepreneur for a number of years. How long have you all had Classic Vision Care?
Gosh, actually, February of 2023 makes 11 years.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
With 11 years of that experience, What would you say are a couple of the top traits that you've taken from that position into this new business, or at least the top things that have helped you kind of be successful in this new business?
What I would say, well, ironically, it comes from my previous work that's been the most valuable. It's the how to do a process map, how to define a process. When I was doing consulting work and engineering work, that was where I did a lot. From this one, I would say that what's really helped is the care side, learning how to treat people, how to talk and make sure it's a great experience. How do you frame conversations? That's been the biggest takeaway from our brick and mortar practices and how we apply it to our admin staff that's remote. Because that's a big deal, right? Making it a great experience. That really in healthcare, that kind of differentiates you if you can have better patient care. And that's the biggest thing I've learned from being in this care industry.
Yeah. And I think too, I've actually taken my kiddos to both of your locations. And to me, that is what differentiates like a classic vision care, a more personal experience versus like some of the chains of eye facilities.
Yeah.
I really love that personal experience and the personal contact with the doctor, which is great.
Yeah, for sure. That's what we try to do. Yeah.
How long have you had business care team going?
Yeah, my business care team has been going around for actually about a year now, but we're really just friends and family for the first 6 to 9 months. Really, it's been about 4 months that we've been taking on new clients.
Yeah. Well, it's great to practice there, right? Get everything kind of under control and understandable. What are your goals over the next, say, year for My Business Care team?
Yeah, we're trying to get to 150 people directly employed. So our big picture vision is we want to help 10,000 people, right? So we want to help the businesses and we want to help people who want opportunities for better life. And so that's our 10-year goal, is help 10,000 people. Over the next year, we're trying to get to 150 folks employed on direct employment. So they're working for other clients. Gotcha.
And how many clients are you all trying to get on board in the next year?
To get to that number, it's going to be somewhere between 50 and 80, probably closer to 60-ish, depending on how many people they need help with. So some people want 2, some people want 5, some people want 1. Just depends.
Yeah. And I'm always curious. I started one of our businesses years and years ago. How are you getting the word out? How are you marketing this business?
I'm trying different strategies. One strategy has been cold calling, getting a list and just working it. And that's been not really great. It's been okay. The better strategy is actually podcast, industry specific podcasts have been really helpful. Being on user groups that people are active on, just commenting and being insightful. We're going to be sponsoring probably events at conferences, things like that is our next step that we're going to be taking to this as well.
Oh, okay. Love that. Those are great. Great marketing tips. Being that you've been an entrepreneur now for over 11 years, you were consulting before that, which in my opinion is very entrepreneurial as well. What is something that you would go back and tell your younger self, if you could, about the world of entrepreneurship?
Read Simple Numbers by Greg Crabtree and follow it religiously. Get your numbers in order first. Get your finances in order first before thinking about anything else in the business.
I love that. Get your numbers in order. That is actually one of my goals for this year, is because I've always kind of flew by the seat of my pants with that. And I mean, I've managed, but it is not always the best place to be. That is one of my biggest goals in 2023, is to focus on the numbers personally and in business. I'm on top of it. I love that. Tell me how, if someone hears this, how would they know they're a good fit for what you're doing, and how would they contact you?
There's a couple of different best fits. The first best fit is someone who is an optometrist or ophthalmologist. We also work with other medical practices. So that's also people we work with. And we also work with other businesses as well. We have a catering company. We've an IT company. It's not our wheelhouse, but we can help folks. But our bread and butter is really optometry, ophthalmology. And they can contact me by going to mybcat.com, mybcat.com. Or you can just send me an email at ankit@mybcat.com, ankit@mybcat.com.
All right. Very good. Well, I'm excited about your new business venture and the fact that you kind of stumbled into it. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything else you would like us to know about the business and where it's going in the future and where you see it and say, I mean, you told me in the next 10 years, you have all these numbers you want, but is there anything else you want us to know about the business?
I think there's a lot of opportunity, right? It's the classic entrepreneur problem, right? You have people around the world who are really talented and need work, and we have places that need help. And connecting those two is sort of what entrepreneurs do, right? And whenever there's a market entrepreneurs should be market makers. I think that's kind of the opportunity for this business over the long haul is how do you level that out? Because there's lots of places like that around the world, not just where we're doing in the Philippines.
Yeah. I know. I really feel like we should circle back to that because I didn't have a great experience with it. And I think it's just because we do such custom stuff that the questions weren't easily answered by the phone personnel. But I don't know. Maybe we need to revisit that one in the future. Maybe I'll talk to you about that.
What I find is that most people don't have their processes defined well enough to outsource it. So we have to end up creating that for them because it has to be on point, right? Because you're effectively training someone. It's really a scalable thing, right? You actually have to have a scalable business before you take it out of your office. The reason why people keep it in their office is because like, oh, if there's a question, I can just answer it if this person doesn't know. Or they'll put them on hold and they're right there, right? So that covers up a lot of issues that you may not realize are there. So if you really go through and create a scalable process, then it's much easier to do that. And you got to create training around it too. Part of it too is as you scale, most folks limit SKUs. Usually when people start off, they are doing everything for everyone. And at some point to scale, you really do have to limit the amount of products you have. And so that makes it easier to scale. So you're not training on 1,000 or 1,000,000 different products. You're training on maybe 100. And really that's a subset of maybe a main 3 or 4 products that just have small nuances in them. That's the decision a business owner needs to make. But, the answer to your question is it's doable. It's just how much time you invest in deciding how you train and how you frame how to answer the questions. A decision tree for you might be a good starting point in terms of deciding, okay, if they ask these questions, this is how you answer it. Or a wiki is also helpful. Creating a wiki where it's searchable database. Let me look that up because many companies do that as well. There's different ways to do that and scale.
Wow. You have given so many takeaways. My takeaways on this episode is going to be great because processes, oh gosh, that is so huge. I talk about it all the time, but I definitely know there are places where, your processes can kind of leak. There are things that aren't as smooth as they could be. And the SKUs thing, very, very good. We're reducing SKUs, actually. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, and I've asked you how listeners can contact you. So hopefully they'll do that because this sounds like a great thing. I have a feeling you may end up even working with more people than who you're working with now, because I know for me, hiring is the biggest challenge right here in the U.S. You're solving a huge problem.
Yeah. It seems to be. We're trying to be helpful. Anything new can help.
Well, Ankit, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Martha. Thanks.
I want to thank Ankit for all of his shares and his challenge. Though he doesn't know he issued me a challenge, he did. I am now on a mission to review our processes and create a decision tree so we can look to outsource some of our job responsibilities overseas. This will allow us to focus on sales and serving our customers right in front of us, as he mentioned. This isn't going to be easy, but it is very thrilling to think about the prospective growth we can see with the right people on board. So I have that challenge ready for me, and I'm ready for it. A few other takeaways that I have from Ankit is Greg Crabtree's book. I actually have this book, and I started reading it some years ago, but never finished it. With one of my goals this year being focusing on our numbers and really diving deep into those, I'm going to pull this book out and get going. Perhaps it will be a Boss Up Books segment in the future, as that segment of the podcast is back this month. Another takeaway I had was, though you might not find another business while you're trying to solve a problem, you might very well find new solutions to your problems if you dig deep enough. Or you might find another problem to solve for your current client base, thereby increasing your revenues and profit. being able to think about those things, thinking about being able to solve a problem for your current customer base, that is thrilling because it gives you an opportunity to grow your revenues. And so think about that. How could you possibly double your business if you found something that you could serve to your current client base? I want to thank you, as always, for tuning in. Don't forget to take a moment to leave a review and share the podcast. If you could just share it with one other person, that would be great. If you go the extra step to write a review for the podcast, you will be entered into a drawing for the month of March to win an Amazon gift card, as well as a free one-on-one session with me to talk specifically about your business. Right now, no one has taken me up on this offer, so your chances of being the winner is very, very good. So go write that review. Also, remember that you can scroll down to the bottom of the show notes and click the link that will allow you to leave a voicemail message. You can ask a question, leave a comment, or let me know what you'd like to learn more about. So take a moment to do that. And as always, now is the time. Now is the time to level up, leave a legacy, and become your own boss.